Hello everyone and welcome to AP Environmental Science. I'm so excited that you decided to sign up for this course. We've got a lot of exciting things that we are going to be doing together this year. You're going to be starting some of this over the summer. I'm hoping that some of the things that we'll be talking about will actually drive your thirst to learn more about the environment. And if you could achieve one thing this year, I would hope it would be a greater respect for the planet that we live on, and to realize that even you as one individual, you have a big impact on our natural resources that we have and the ability to develop a sustainable way of life on this planet. There are 7 billion people that are living on the surface of the earth, and more than any other species, we alter the face of the planet, and this can have severe consequences on the resources that we use. And we're going to talk about some of those things. Oops, this happens every now and then. I'm working on an old computer, forgive me. A couple of things before we actually start Chapter 1 is that you need to make a commitment to this course, and you need to make a commitment right now. You're going to have to go home and you're going to have to read the chapters. You're going to have to read and take notes. We will go over a lot of things. You'll notice that some of the chapters are very long, 100 and some odd slides long. So there's a lot of work that you have to do on your own. I'm not going to spoon feed everything to you, although I will try to go over it so that it'll explain a little bit more. You will be having these screencasts that you're going to be listening to so that we can have discussions within the classroom on a daily basis, and I hope that you're going to find that as a helpful way for you. So let's get started. We're going to start with chapter 1, and Chapter 1 is called The Science and Sustainability. It's an introduction to environmental science, so we're just going to kind of get an overview. You're going to hear about that word sustainability, and that's something that's going to be a central theme that we're going to have throughout our time in our chapters here. Okay. All right, as I said, the Earth may seem very, very big in comparison to us, and we have a tendency to think that our systems are infinite, that we're always going to have resources available. But what we're learning is that the systems that we use do have limits, and they are finite. If we continue at the rate of consumption that we're doing right now, one of the things we're going to learn this year is we only have about 54 years of our oil reserves left. We have to look at alternate systems, and we need to be able to find a way that we can maintain what we have. We're learning more and more that we can change the earth and we can damage its systems. We are seeing temperatures rise globally on average. May not seem like it here locally, but when we collectively take the whole world's temperature ranges, we're seeing that we're increasing. And I want you to start thinking in terms of, if we're talking about 32 degrees Fahrenheit is freezing, or 0 degrees Celsius is freezing, if we just change that by 1 degree, where it's 33 degrees, or 1 degree Celsius, then we're melting. And that's a huge difference, because we think of the polar ice caps that are frozen. 1 degree is going to cause melting to happen, and that's what we're seeing. We saw a huge chunk of the Greenland ice sheet, maybe about 700 feet wide and almost a mile long, break off. And the flow of water in Greenland is just increasing, and that ice that's melting, it's fresh water, and it's changing the chemistries of the ocean. So these are things that we need to be aware of, that we have an impact on. we're going to talk about the environment, and the environment is going to be everything. All the living things, all the non-living things, and our interdependencies, if you remember that from biology, on the living and the non-living. So we're talking about that being our plants, our animals, everything from our forests to the farms to the oceans, our continents. We're going to look at structures like urban centers and the impacts that they have and the living spaces for all organisms, and then the social relationships and institutions that can impact the changes that we will be seeing as we go along through this course. We need our environment. We depend on it for everything, for our food, our water, our shelter, our medicines, our industry, anything that you can imagine. You did an energy audit at your houses this summer. That energy comes from the earth. It comes from the solar energy that's being harnessed. It's coming from fossil fuels that are being mined and obtained in our oceans. So we really depend on this healthy, functioning planet. So when we think about, well, what is the fundamental insight of environment science? We are part of this natural world. We can change this natural world, and our interactions with the natural world are very, very important. It's important in being able to maintain these resources for generations to come, to prevent pollution, to prevent overharvesting, to stop soil erosion from happening, to keep areas green, to recycle, to reuse. All very important in maintaining this healthy planet. We depend completely on our environment for our survival. So if we continue at the rate that we are on right now, one of the things that you're going to be doing is checking your carbon footprint out. If we continue at the rate for Americans alone, it's going to take each one of us 2 to 3 planet Earths to meet the needs that we require. And hopefully one of the things that you're going to do this year is you're really going to take an internal focus on how much you are consuming and using these resources, and realize that there's other ways that you could still live in the same luxury that you're living in, but reduce that carbon footprint. So protecting that environment is going to improve our health. It's going to lengthen our lives. It's going to increase our wealth. It's going to increase our ability to be able to get around, and we are a very mobile society right now, and it's going to help with our leisure time. If we don't use them wisely, then we're going to lose these benefits that we have. And our natural systems are being degraded, and they're being degraded very rapidly by pollution and soil erosion. We are driving species to extinction, and we're creating environmental changes that can threaten the long-term health and survival of not only small species, but large species like ourselves. So, environmental science, what is it? It is the study of how the natural world works. So it's our understanding of all of the systems, the biogeochemical cycles that you've heard about in general biology, the impacts of humans on the environment, and the impacts of the environment on humans. Think of natural disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes. All of those have an impact. We need to understand that our interactions with the environment is so important in being able to maintain a healthy future, and that we have a responsibility to that environment. And we need to understand it in order to be able to solve the problems that we're creating. And we've got to look at this globally. It's not just here at home, although home is a great place to start. But when we look across the globe, we've got underdeveloped countries that are seeking to become developed countries that technology is moving into. And what happens with technology is technology can use up the resources faster. So we have to be responsible stewards that as we help these countries grow and develop, that we've also got to teach them sustainable ways within that environment. We also have to think of global conflict because war is very tough on our natural resources. It destroys the land just horrifically. So we have to take that into account as well. So we've got to gain knowledge and we've got to look for the opportunity to solve the problems while we still can. And one of the things you've heard me say over and over is we've got to conserve those natural resources. These are all the things that we need for survival. And we've got to know that some resources are non-renewable. That means we won't get them back. So when we think about fossil fuels, they took hundreds of thousands of years to be able to be produced in the ground. And if we only have 54, 62, 112 years left of the different types of fossil fuels that are there, and we're depleting them so rapidly, it's going to take hundreds of thousands of years to replenish that. So they're non-renewable. And we've got to consider the renewable resources, the ones that can be replenished, that we can perpetually renew, like the sunlight and the wind and the wave energy. And we've got to look about harnessing the energy from them and getting away from our dependencies on those fossil fuels, those non-renewable resources. We do have different levels of renewable resources, some that can be renewed over short periods of time, like our trees. You can cut down a tree. It might take 100 years to grow, but 100 years is less than 100,000 years. So we've got to look at ways of, if we're cutting something down, we've got to put something in its place to replace it so that we always have that plant life available. We can also destroy these. Forest fires, habitat destruction, building developments, not using our land wisely. So these are some of the things that we need to focus on. So here's a good look, graphic illustration of the different resources that we have. Our renewable, which we've already listed as sunlight, wind energy, and wave energy. We also have to think of geothermal energy, and that's the heat that's coming up from our Earth. If you've ever been to Yellowstone Park and seen Old Faithful, the geysers, there's a lot of heat within our Earth. Fresh water and forest products and agricultural crops and soils. And then our non-renewable sources that you see here are our crude oil and our natural gas and our coal and other metals like copper and aluminum. All right, each screencast can only be 15 minutes long. We're getting close to the end, so we're going to end this here, and I will see you in the next screencast.